All right. Looks like the requests to join are slowing down just a little bit. So I would like to officially welcome you all. My name is Sheila King. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for AESA, the Association of Educational Service Agencies. I hope most of you recognize that acronym, as we are the member organization for hopefully most of you or all of you who are ESAs around the country. I know we all have different names, but we are very, very excited to have a large ESA audience across the country who's interested in joining us on this project. AESA has been thrilled to partner with COSN, and we're excited that the Gates Foundation chose to provide funding for this project. And the goal is to build a sustainable model to support professional learning in the K-12 setting, focusing on small and medium-sized districts and supporting them in Gen AI. We believe that ESAs are the key to really getting this content into the hands of small and medium-sized districts across the country. So we also know that COSN is the expert source in this area. So we believe that the training is going to be super high quality, very well supported, continuously updated, and that's the kind of work that ESAs understand and appreciate. So just a quick thank you for being here, and we're excited to launch this amazing project. I will introduce now Robert Duke from COSN. Robert, you want to say hello?
No. Okay. Well, good afternoon. I'm Robert Duke. I'm with COSN. I'm the Chief Operating Officer, and I'm excited to see all these individuals that are interested in helping us promote this project, which is important to us. AI is one of our key interests, and so thank you for joining us and hearing us out. And I'll turn it over to Pete.
Great. Thanks, Robert. And I'm Pete Just. I am the AI Project Director for the Consortium of School Networking, or COSN, and we'll be walking you through a couple of the details of the program. Before I go on, I just want to say welcome to Keith Kruger, who is our CEO, and looks like Mr. Incredible right now, I think.
Ways.
No, you got that, Keith, but that's clever. All right, well, let's get started. So just a quick overview. Oh, Keith, he's actually there. Hi, Keith.
Was that?
Not just my AI robot.
That's good.
Glad you're here. So today we're going to do a quick overview, welcoming you, obviously, as we're doing right now, but then also talk a little bit about the importance of generative AI, which you may be very well familiar with, but we'll kind of give you a couple of details from our perspective, and then talk a little bit about the opportunity for you and your ESA or BOCES or whatever you're called in your state. But we're thankful that you're here, and glad that we could be a part of this work with AESA, which I think is going to expand not just the reach of COSN, but the reach of all of you who are here in AESA into school districts that may not know what to do in terms of this big opportunity that's ahead of us and is on top of us right now. So the purpose of this program, this initiative, is to try to build capacity. We're trying to build the opportunity for school districts to do a really well considered adoption of generative AI. And we do that by using a metric that I'll share with you here shortly, a tool that is a maturity model. We think that in doing this work, we can help districts in understanding whether they're ready to make certain steps in terms of the adoption of generative AI, and also like what does it look like to define a current state, how do you define what your future state might want to be? And then how do you measure that along the way and create a roadmap to see that you're progressing? So what we're trying to do is the work we've really been doing for about 1.5 years with schools around the country that are COSIN members, and being able to push that into smaller districts all around the country who also need the same set of skills to be able to evaluate this. So this role is the regional trainer role. The regional trainer role will be working with 12 lead trainers, and those lead trainers are going to be really your coaches. My role and the role of the other subject matter experts is to work with the lead trainers. So we have, I'll show you here in a minute, sort of a structure through which we'll be able to provide local trainings. But the role that we're talking about today is the regional trainer to help facilitate these training sessions, empowering schools with very actionable strategies towards adoption of AI. And the other thing that'll happen is you'll be able to develop your training expertise in this area as well. And the people we're looking for are people much like yourselves, I'm sure, people that are already established as exceptional leaders, exceptional educators, professional developers, people who have that training experience and also have a passion to be able to share these ideas around generative AI and help schools go through the process of adoption. So that's what our goal is, to try to find 40 of those people. So in terms of the opportunity and why apply, we think there's 3 reasons. We think that obviously there's an opportunity for you to, have a great impact in the districts that you serve, providing them with greater sense of readiness, a greater sense of being able to get on the on-ramp, or if they're already on the on-ramp, being able to really better understand how they can navigate their future. We think it's a great opportunity for professional growth for each of you, obviously, to expand your expertise in this area. Many times the conversation is, as it should be, around the classroom, but the reality is, if you don't look at the operational side of the district, if the people that are the key leaders are not creating guidelines, creating guardrails, looking at how they can improve operational efficiencies across the whole organization, everything from the business office to the transportation department to, how does procurement happen, to how we use data, how do we protect student data, all those pieces are very critical pieces to be able to make teachers successful in the classroom, and also to make the districts run at a better level with the help of generative AI. And then also, obviously, this is an opportunity for your ESA to be recognized as a leader in AI professional development. I'm not going to read all this to you, but there's a number of benefits that you can kind of read through here on your own in terms of what the benefit of the opportunity. We'll have an ongoing coaching program with the lead trainers, as I mentioned. So this is not just a get trained and then do the training, but it's really kind of an ongoing program to be able to help you to continually deepen your expertise in this area and become quite an expert in terms of everything from the classroom all the way up to the superintendent's office, making sure that everyone is participating and at least understands what their roles are, because it's not something that, obviously, this type of change is massive and takes years. And so we are committed to helping you continue to grow your expertise. Also, there will be a digital credential that you'll be able to share as just a thought leader in this area, and obviously be able to create a sustainable opportunity for schools across the country.
Pete,
Yes.
on that previous slide, would you also mention the community of practice aspect too for the?
Yeah, so the lead trainers and the regional trainers and the subject matter experts, of which I'm one of 3, will be working to kind of build this community of practice. As I said, we'll actually be working in a in a Canvas, if you're familiar with Instructure's Canvas, in a Canvas environment where we'll be able to kind of work together. And as the lead regional trainers, you're going to be working with the lead trainers and giving them feedback to make the program improve over time. So this is really a community of practices. Catherine, who's our project manager, had just mentioned that you're essentially opting into, as well as your regional ESA. And speaking of which, there's an opportunity for greater sustainability for your ESA because there's a revenue benefit here as well as a reputational benefit. In terms of the training levels, I was just sort of talking through the lead trainers working with people that'll get this role as regional trainers will then be all doing local trainings in your area of the country, your area of the state. Touch on that a little bit more. So the districts that you're working with obviously urgently need this expertise. Many districts are understanding the need to some degree and trying to understand what does how does what's a roadmap look like? What does the on-ramp look like? How do we know that we're progressing? How do we know what we should be considering in the process of an adoption? How is this different than other adoptions we've done? And then what does it look like down the road as we want to make changes, and how does this change management look like? So it's really critical to have people that are experts, and then these regional trainers will become the regional experts in for schools to reference as they are trying to answer these questions. So what we hope is that what's happening at the regional and really the local level is that there's also a sustained benefit as schools continue to work through the process of understanding what adoption looks like over the time of the adoption, which again, is probably going to be looking at years. We know that in our model, most school districts are just at a beginning level of maturity. And even though we're working with a lot of districts across the United States who have been focused on this for a year or two, they continue to make gains, but the gains are modest because there's a lot of things that are moving on that are happening in a district. So let's talk a little bit about that tool. So this is the K-12 Gen AI Maturity Tool. If you're familiar with CoSN, and if you receive any of our materials, you've seen a version of this. This is the most recent version, the November 2024 version, and that added an additional domain, which I'll talk to here in a minute. But it was developed in cooperation with the Council of Great City Schools and focuses on whether a district is ready to begin the adoption process, what does maturity look like, and how do you do assessments, and then what does implementation look like? What are proofs and evidence that you're moving forward? Because obviously I can say, yeah, I think we're doing really great, but what does that really mean? Like, we have to have evidence. And so what does evidence look like in the multiple areas of the maturity tool? Tool covers 7 different readiness domains and 3 different maturity levels. And the readiness domain that is most recently been added is the academic one. As CoSN, we do work with academic leaders, but we are focused on operational side of the house. Mostly our members are chief technology officers or ed tech leaders in their district. And so that's where we started. And this academic component allows for us to have a better, more deeper conversation with the academic leader of the school district as well. So that was the part that was added through the summer through November of 2024. So a quick deep dive into the maturity levels. So you can see as we look at this one particular example, and I'll dive in a little bit more, that there's emerging, developing, and mature, and then there's subdomains. So this one right here is number 7, the academic AI literacy readiness domain, and this is subdomain 7.1 or 7.2.1. Let me jump out of this presentation real quick to share the screen that shows the maturity tool. All right, there we go. Share again. Thanks for your patience. So here's the Gen AI maturity tool, and as you can see, it is a rather lengthy tool. I'm still going. So 82 pages. And what this is about is these different domains that I mentioned. So we have 7: executive leadership readiness, operational readiness, data readiness, technical readiness, security readiness. A lot of people don't think of security safeguards, which is very dangerous. Legal and risk readiness, also potentially dangerous if you don't remediate. And then the academic AI literacy readiness. So let's go down to that first, since that's probably something most of us on this call are most familiar with. So that's down at 61. So this is that domain, and it focuses on equipping K-12 schools with the capabilities that are happening in curriculum, teacher professional development, ethical AI use, and policy development. In many cases, by the way, when we're talking about policy, it's really more of a administrative guidelines type of thing we're talking about there. Maybe policy, which is of course passed by the school board. How do you evaluate the impact of generative artificial intelligence? What should we be doing about accessibility and equity? And how about operational automation? So just those are the areas. So let's dive into one. Were you going to say something, Catherine? Okay. So the one we were just showing was 7.2, which is teacher professional development, probably a pretty appropriate one for this group, which probably focuses on that a lot. So this is a bit of a drill down then. So when we're talking about emerging, what does that mean? Basic AI professional development are introduced, focusing on raising awareness, right? What's the evidence? We have workshops every once in a while. What does it take to move to developing? Increased participation in the training. What does it look like to be mature? High levels of proficiency in AI integration among educators. So just sort of jumping through the 3 different levels. That's what would be an example in an area that you would probably you'd be pretty familiar with. But teacher professional development is more than just that. We've got other subdomains. So what are the resources that are available to teachers? Basic set of tools and resources, resources that are readily used for lesson planning and professional development, resources that are widely used and highly rated by educators with feedback mechanisms in place to continually access and upgrade the offerings. So you can kind of see the progression there, and I'll do one more. Community building. What is community building look like in regard to this? Do we have small localized groups or online forums? Do we have regular community events, or is there a large active community? So these are just the levels of maturity that you might see in that domain. Looking at another one, in terms of operational readiness, we might look at procurement or staffing. So you may be familiar with the adoption of, IT resources. How does that relate to AI in regard to procurement? So are we ethically procuring all of our AI tools? In other words, are we thinking through what are the ethics of where the data sets come from? Are they biased? If they are, how do we address that? So there's pieces of procurement that normally aren't discussed that really are a critical part of having AI maturity. So these are areas that often, as I read through the professional development, you might be like, oh yeah, I can relate to a lot of those things, but this is something that might be a bit of a further effort that a lot of people aren't thinking about. And that's one of the benefits of having a number of operational pieces as a part of AI readiness, is because all of them combine to form a deeper, more integrated solution for the school district. All right, let me switch our screens again. And we'll get into some additional detail. Bit of a challenge here, just a minute. So what does it look like in terms of a time investment? So we have a 1.5 day in-person train the trainer session. The lead trainers are actually being trained next week for a 1.5 days. But that'll be a part of the regional training requirement as well. We'll have periodic virtual training sessions. As I said, this is an ongoing training. And also we're looking for opportunities to make the program better as well. So that'll be part of the conversation with the lead trainers. Obviously, you'll develop an in-depth understanding of the maturity model that'll start at the train the trainer session, actually with some work in advance of that. And then we'll have the trainer community that will be in Canvas that you'll be a part of, and we ask that you actively engage in that. And then obviously working with your lead trainer coach, you'll have a specific coach that will be assigned to each of the regional trainers. And obviously the rest are also great resources, but you'll have someone specifically assigned to you. And then the feedback we're looking for is how do we make this program better?
No, I love that.
In terms of some of these event details, we've already got these dates in May and June that we'll be doing the regional training. That will allow the coaches and the trainers to meet face to face. Obviously, we can do a lot of things virtually, but there is a huge benefit if you're trying to establish relationships on an ongoing basis to have a live interaction with them in person. So we'll be needing having that happen at those 4 dates. You would go as a regional trainer to one of those. Obviously, they'll review the materials, the content. We'll be talking a lot about best practices and sharing. And again, this is part of the professional development you'll have in terms of learning best practices, not just the things you've been trained and you've experienced yourself, but what some of the best in the country are finding for themselves. And then obviously talking about how do we do local training. So I'm going to have one more slide, and then we're going to hand it off to our Chief Operating and Financial Officer, Robert Duke. But the cost investment is basically going to be upfront a $1,500 training and coaching fee. That's going to be for that training event. And then the travel, lodging, and per diem to get there. There are 2 types of memberships, which Robert will talk about in terms of COSN. You need to be one of those 2. One of them is paid, one's not. There's a licensing fee per participant for the local trainings, and then there's obviously the routine costs of beverages, lunch, that sort of thing. Robert, you want to go into further detail?
Sure. Thank you, Pete. And to answer your question, it looks like Sheila is answering the question, but the locations are still being worked on. And we want to make sure this is localized as possible, this training. And so we are trying to select 4 regions, around the country, and we want to minimize travel the best we can. Obviously, there will be date conflicts that have to be adjusted for. With regard to the model, you do need to have a COSN membership, but we offer. I think there's a slide before that, Pete. A different order than what I'm looking at. Okay.
Maybe it's this. That's probably the slide you're looking for.
No, go back. Okay. You do need a COSN membership, but we have a free membership, and you can use that. But in the next slide, I'm going to show you the difference and why you probably want the paid membership. There is a seat fee for each participant. Think of that as a curriculum fee for the content that we have in Canvas. And the lens you're using here is when you're putting together local trainings, this is what you look at. You look at an annual COSN membership fee. You look at a licensing fee per participant. There's a bulk discount schedule, which is here, and I'll show you a little more about that later. So on the left, you can see what you get for the paid membership. You get access to that discount schedule. And on the right, you can see there's no discounts. So that's the free membership, but you're not getting access to the bulk discounts. And that makes a difference over long term with regard to your sustainability. Next slide. So the things you want to consider, and we've just put this theoretical chart together. Look at the bottom, potential income of, and when you're doing your local trainings, you can decide how much you charge for these events, but you also have break evens to worry about. We've chosen a fee of $800 for this model, with the assumption that maybe you get 20 people in there, $16,000, and then you can see your expenses depending on which way you go with COSIN membership. So if you have the paid COSIN membership, what do you have to put against that? Well, you have this training and coaching fee for the event that you have. You have travel to get to one of those 4 regional trainings. You have when you get down to your local trainings, you have to pay the seat fee, but that can be discounted to as much as 25%. So that fee, 5,985, is what you see there. And you look at the total of all those expenses, and you're just shy of $10,000 with a revenue stream of 16. You go to the other side where you have no fee for membership, but without the bulk discounts, you have a higher cost of almost 15,000 and revenue of 16,000. So it's all going to depend on your circumstance, how many people you think you can bring into your ESA, how many classes you think you can do per year on this topic. All of those are going to be factors. Next slide, please. I think it's you, Pete.
Right. Thank you. So what does it look like over the next couple of days and months? We have applications due here shortly. Obviously, it's the 11th today. And so on the 17th, applications will be due. March 31st, we'll have vetted those applicants, and we'll notify all of the regional trainers that were selected. We'll start the online community in April, and then in May and June, as you saw those dates, we'll have train the trainer coaches sessions live and in person at 4 locations yet to be determined on those specific dates. And then we'll finish up the training after that. And local trainings may start sooner than in or after June, because the lead trainers might begin their local trainings earlier. But for regional trainings, they would most likely be happening in June, July, August, September, and so on. In terms of how to apply, if you go to cosin.org/trainer, that is towards the bottom, you will be able to read through a lot of the same information we shared with you here today. But towards the bottom is the application. So that will take you into the COSIN network, where you can then register and apply. And that does need to be done by the 17th at 6 p.m. Then we'll close. So it is the question and answer time. So we've obviously had a number of back and forth in the chat. So thank you for those there. We'll get the slide deck to you in a PDF form at the trainer site. Any questions? Anyone want to unmute and ask questions verbally other than what we're seeing in the chat? Application requirements. Basically what we saw on an earlier slide and what you'll see on the trainer page, this one here, cosin.org/trainer, are really where the requirements are going to be. I will say that you'll also see when you go through the application process that we're asking for a video that is an exemplar of you doing training. I would encourage you to make sure you include that, and that it be a good video of showing your skills. It could be specifically for the, on this topic, or it could be something totally different that you've done, over this past several months. Just we want to see your style and how you do your presentation. So please do include that. Lots of other questions I might not be able to answer, so please jump in.
I have a couple questions, Pete. Angela Burke from the Collaborative for Educational Services in Massachusetts.
Hello.
Hi, how are you? We were an ISTE certified educator site partner with them when they had the certified educator program. And I just have a couple questions about sort of logistics in terms of, I did ask the question about pricing. And will there, so any people can charge whatever they want for this course, or will there be a consistent price?
They may charge whatever they like, and we're not
Okay.
restricting that.
And it's going to be a face-to-face course, right? Not an online course?
Correct. The reason for that, it's a good question I didn't address. The reason for that is because the process of working through a district's goals, objectives, missions, values, then determining what their current state is, could potentially be done virtually, but it's pretty challenging because part of it is using generative AI to be able to parse all that information in a pretty complex process. And we want to teach that process so that schools can have increasing independence. And, you know, as you've probably found, there are some things that work really well virtually. There are just some things that it's really hard to accomplish unless you're in the same place at the same time. And we think this is that type of training.
Thank you. I'm very happy because, you know, I think we've all found over time, if you really want someone to engage with the content wholly and physically be present, if they're online, they're not, because there's way too many outside extremities and emergencies that they tend to attend to. But if they're in a room, they're really committed. So
Well, and
thank you.
especially when we're talking about, you know, superintendent's cabinet, which is really who this is oriented towards. I mean, those are busy people and they have people constantly tugging at their sleeves and, you know, we need to get them isolated. And it's one of the reasons it's better to have it in person.
So I have a quick question, Pete. I'm an author, writer. I have a book on AI and K-12 education called AI Goes to School. I've been a member of COSA for like 9 years. I'm an ISTE community leader. So I'm kind of just joining in because I do this work all the time anyways to see like what to support my local representation for Illinois, make sure that the smaller districts that don't have that opportunity or don't have that specialty can do that. So I've already applied, but I'm confused. So the financial commitments on our end are what you displayed on that slide. And then when it comes to the training for the regions that we could do if we go through the program and it's approved and whatnot is the second part of that pay slide, correct?
This slide here?
That, yes. So I mean, my district's been a COSIN member and everything else. So that's the amount of money that it would cost on the right then.
Yeah, no, Micah, are you a part of an ESA or are you part of a school district?
I'm part of a school district.
Okay.
I'm a tech director.
Oh, okay, great. Sheila, do you want to address that?
I'm just trying to figure out, because I've already applied, like didn't know who was going to be here. So I was just trying to figure out more details of the program.
Sheila, you're muted. There you go.
So right now we are focusing on applicants who are affiliated with an ESA. And that will be our first line of regional trainers. And they're, you know, our focus is on the small to medium-sized districts through working with the ESAs. I think that if your ESA is willing to collaborate with you, and if you are able to you know, have an agreement with your local ESA, then that would be important to note in your application, because that will be one criteria that we use to identify the regional trainers. So is that part of what you're asking, Micah, or you're
No,
wanting
I'm already a member of COSIN. I'm already an IETL. I'm an ISTE community leader. So I do a lot of work a lot of times with different organizations. So I'm a school district director of technology, and you said you're only interested in the state level agencies at this point. So it's like
Yeah, so the regional trainers will be affiliated with educational service agencies around the country. And if an educational service agency wants to contract with or tap one of their local district people to do this work on their behalf, that would be great. But right now, if you're not affiliated with an ESA, we would not select you as a regional trainer, likely.
Yeah, I mean, remember this is grant funded and the Gates Foundation wanted us to have a specific focus. So not to say this won't change in the future, but that's where we're at right now.
Yeah. Robert, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think you said it well.
Okay.
Great. Great question, Micah. Thank you for being here.
One question that appeared in the chat had to do with, should it be 1 day or do we want it to be more than 1 day?
The local training?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, the local training, I think we'll start with 1 day. Potentially, you know, you could do it in, really, you're going to need a day and a half with the school district. So you could do 1 day and then have them come out. I know what it means to be able to get away from the district. I was a CTO and worked in the district for, you know, my entire career up until the last 2. So getting people out of the district can often be hard. So I think that, you know, either trying to get them out for a day and a half or trying to set up something where you can do the whole day and a half over a period of a couple of meetings, it's going to be determined really by you. This could be divided up into thirds. So, you know, potentially you could do 3 half days or 2 days, 1 day and a half day. There's going to be some combination where it really ends up being a day and a half. But the other thing that I think we'll be realizing over time, and I'm answering a question from Jessica here, my experience is that in working with schools, they need continued assistance. So our goal is to help them become independent, but this is independent like helping a child walk to some degree or helping a school district with any adoption that's significant. One-to-ones didn't happen overnight, right? I mean, there was continual tweaking and continual improvements when we did the one-to-one deployments, you know, the past 10 years or 20 years. And so this will be similar in that way, I think. So I do think it's also an opportunity for a ESA to develop a cohort of school districts. We're not formally planning anything, but I think there's a lot of opportunity here for your ESAs to work with school districts over a long term to see transformation.
So if I just add to that, Pete, you addressed, I was just looking at Jessica's question too. I think right now we are focused on this idea of you being able to provide a professional learning experience for your districts. So, but that having potential to generate revenue for you, as well as all the other things that come with, you know, this level of expertise. What Pete just opened the door to is potentially additional services that support implementation of the professional learning that you will be providing. So if you have a service around coaching or consulting or school improvement, this content would slide very well into that lane as an ongoing opportunity for you to generate revenue in your ESA. Okay, you got the rest of the question. Thanks, Pete.
Any other questions? I think we've answered most of the questions that are in the chat. Anything else? Thanks, David. Are these events to be held for individual districts at a time, or can it be larger? Yeah, I mean, we would expect multiple districts would attend at the same time. I mean, I would expect that you would do a day and a half, however it plays out, with, you know, 4 or 5 districts. You know, we would want to have a minimum, I think. I mean, small districts, they probably only have 3 district administrators, you know. We would want all of them involved. Bigger districts, might have 20 administrators. We would want the key leaders involved, because others will also be involved. And the way the maturity matrix works, and we're working on a tool to make this a little easier, but there are a lot, as you saw in my deep dive there are a lot of areas that require some specific knowledge. So your superintendent is not going to probably be able to answer, unless it's a small district where their fingers are in almost everything anyway. They probably won't be able to answer anything other than domain 1. You're going to need your academic person to answer domain 7. You're going to need your IT person to answer the data domain. And if it's a really big district, they might not even be able to do that. You're going to need your data person. So what I'm saying is, it takes a lot of the key decision makers in the school district to be able to fully evaluate your maturity, because there's so many different areas. And so I think the key is, the more voices that can speak into that, the better. But the reality is, you can only do so much at once anyway. So you may end up determining that what your focus is. We're going to focus on these 5 areas for the next year. Out of all of them, these are the 5 we're going to focus on. I would recommend that those be in multiple domains, not just in the academic, for example. Hopefully that answers your question, David, and then some.
Is CoSN going to advertise this product heavily, in addition to the ESAs? Obviously, we would advertise it, but will CoSN be talking about this as well?
So CoSN and AESA are already talking about it in terms of generating interest in these training roles. And we have committed to providing support for ESAs who let us know when their events are, and we can promote those as well. So I think on our websites, things like that. Anyway, so does that kind of answer your question, Angela? Okay.
Yes.
Good questions. Really, really intelligent questions. Thank you.
And we already have a volunteer host, ESA, so
See that.
take note.
Thanks, Ken. I'll write you down. Yeah, we're trying to stay in that like 30-minute-ish. If I wrote 20, that was a typo. It's really in that 30-minute range from an airport. So 40 is not a big stretch. So I'll add you to the list, and I'll let you know if the stars align.
Angela mentioned she'd want to
CES as well.
CES.
Very good.
The-
On the list. Thank you.
We have a question from someone who is employed by both a local ESA and the statewide ESA. And the question is,
Yes, I was
Yeah,
just trying to type to you, Catherine. I can't type and talk at the same time. I can barely talk without being interrupted. Anyway, I think that in your application, it's fine to note both. If you are employed by a single ESA, that's great. If you anticipate that a statewide association would want to be the convener of training across an entire state, I think that's something that you all will have to handle locally, but clearly you have an affiliation with an individual BOCES and a statewide association. So there isn't a conflict either way.
Robert, there was a question about what the Gates Foundation funding covers. I responded in the chat that it was primarily development administration of the program. I don't know if you want to expand on that.
And it covers the cost of training our lead trainers. One of the reasons we are charging, and this might be the real question, why are we charging $1,500 when we have a grant, is because the Gates Foundation has specifically asked us to create a sustainable program. So at this level, we are able to create something that can continue beyond the Gates grant. So we hope we can, at some point, maybe even reach down to district IT people and teach them how to become trainers, which was an earlier question.
See, there's also a question, are you considering more than one person from each ESA for the regional trainer role? Pete, would you maybe be, or Pete and Sheila, just would you be able to speak to the balance between geographic distribution, but also trainer expertise?
I was waiting for Sheila to say that.
Okay. So I'll start, Pete, and then you just fix whatever I break. I wouldn't say that multiple people from an ESA can't apply for these roles, but I would say it's unlikely that one ESA would be that we would identify multiple trainers from one ESA because we want to spread out the number of people we have, so that we've got more coverage with the limited number of people that we can train. The other thing is just the interest that we have is to choose absolutely the best of the best that apply. And so, if you have two people that you think are equally excellent and you can't differentiate and you want us to differentiate, we'll do that. But I think it's very unlikely that we would choose two from the same organization at this stage of our development. Pete, would you add to that?
You said everything I was thinking, Sheila. Well done.
Great.
There's a question, do we anticipate that the licensing fee would remain the same annually?
And we have used it the same schedule for years. So I do not anticipate any significant changes to that model.
So it will be recurring, but would be the same over time.
Well, I mean, there could be small price increases here and there, but typically we've increased those, maybe that $3.99 becomes a $4.19 or something like that. There have not been large changes that we've made over time, and certainly not within the next year.
Thank you, Robert.
Next question, what's the geographic area one regional trainer, what's the geographic area one regional trainer will be expected to cover?
So our thought is that trainers will first look at their own catchment area where they provide support, and trainers can also, like a little bit like I mentioned about having a statewide system, states can talk amongst themselves about a way to leverage trainers in the area or utilizing a trainer from another state, or to do something as a statewide system. So it's really up to the states if you want to do something collaborative across ESAs, or if you stay focused on your own catchment area. We're not going to govern that. Catherine, Pete, is that?
That's my understanding of how we're doing this. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
One question just came in from Gina. Is the expectation that the regional trainers will hold a training, at least one, annually ongoing, or is this a 25-26 host ESA offering? Probably a good question for you as well, Sheila.
So I think our interest is that we, as part of building a sustainable model, that there would be a routine approach to providing this training. I anticipate that we will grow additional regional trainers over time, so we can continue to deepen the bench, so to speak. That's my best answer at this point, is that, you know, if you sign up to be part of this, we want you to be part of it. And we haven't set you have to do it so many times per year, but if you think you're going to be one and then we wouldn't want to do it more than that, this might not be a great fit, because this is about building a sustainable model and really building a community of people that can help us continue to grow and improve and extend our reach. Is that a fair response?
Yeah, and if you think about the schools that you serve, I mean, just count, you know, those, not even just in your current service area or catchment, but those throughout the state, because obviously, like here in Indiana, we have 9. You know, not all 9 will be offering this. Maybe it will be 1. So that really serves the whole state in many ways. And, you know, you look at Indiana, we've got hundreds of schools. So, you know, there is a lot of opportunity here. And I would say that the opportunity is all immediate. Some schools are moving towards what we're offering and won't get there for 2 years, realistically. You know, some schools are ready right now. Other schools won't be ready until next year. So if you think about just the number of schools that could be served and when they'll be ready to be served, I think the opportunity is pretty significant, and we would want we would want ESAs to offer, you know, multiple opportunities throughout the year. I would think of those as cohorts.
Can I add on to that? I put my question in the chat, but I'm
Yeah.
not afraid to open my mic. So I'm
Thank you.
curious about, you mentioned the ongoing, and I love the future thinking, but if you're selected as a regional trainer, how are those regional trainers going to continue to get the improvements or updates for the content so that we're staying current with whoever is selected? What does
Yeah,
that
we'll
look
have
like?
a Canvas, Instructure Canvas community that we'll have with the lead trainers that will run for, you know, the length of the grant minimally, which is at least until April of 26. And so at least for a year. And I think that after that point, I don't want to speak for COSN necessarily, Robert, but I think there'd be additional opportunity for us to continue to grow that network. Catherine, you were muted, but I think you were going to try to say something.
I was just going to tag on that we have discussed a very basic half-day recertification session that could happen at the year-ish mark or next June. And Pete, do you want to speak to also how we anticipate that AI will obviously continue to develop,
Yeah.
and so we'll have updates to the content, and we just want to make
Right.
sure everyone it's.
Yeah, I've been doing presentations for the last 2 years for COSN to, you know, superintendents, school technology directors, chief financial officers, and there is no presentation that doesn't change from 1 month to the next. And you may have found the exact same thing. We can hardly contain our knowledge on what the changes are that happened in the last week or month. Obviously, not all of those apply to K-12. But they certainly have implications. So with that knowledge that this is a rapidly evolving area, we don't think that, for example, our initial presentation slide deck will last for a year or maybe 6 months. So one of the things that will happen in the training is the second day of the training will really be a lot about this question of how do we get updates and how do we participate in the updating of the material. And, you know, that's all going to happen in the Canvas website, but also, so there's 2 places really in Canvas, but then also COSN has a network. So it's really more of a discussion forum. I think that is going to be, you know, those of us that have taught online know that there are some limitations to what you can and can't do in Canvas. So, and then the other piece of that network is now you're also going to be exposed to the bigger COSN network in many school districts that are finding success in working with generative AI. So that's a connection that you'll have as well as with the lead trainers, because you'll be able to participate in the CoSN AI community, and be able to see all the things that are happening there. So that's an excellent question, Jennifer. I think it's very much been on our minds since day one of how do we continue to, as Sheila said, provide continuous improvement of the program and make sure it continues to stay relevant. I will say that in the year and a half that we've had the maturity model, it's changed 4 times. We've already got plans to change it again. So like even the model itself keeps changing because of the nature of the work.
And I think some of these questions all circle back to sustainability of the program. We would do everything we can to continue to update the Canvas materials. Otherwise, we remove it from our inventory. But we are treating this like we do all of our other professional learning materials, and that is there is a regular update cycle for all of them. So as long as there is a sale price on it, that model allows us to update the materials.
Catherine, do you see anything else in the chat? I just scanned it, but I think
There's one, let's see, one just popped in from Melissa. We're finding small to medium schools in our network are interested in on-site PL many times for the whole staff. Could there be a school or district licensing fee model considered?
hmm,
Oh, gotcha.
Hmm.
So Melissa, it sounds like you're talking for the entire school staff or the entire district staff.
so Pete, I think my filter on this would be that the entire staff might not be the right audience for this at this stage. Can you speak to the content and kind of the, from a target
Yeah.
audience perspective?
Yeah, because the backbone of this work is the generative AI maturity model that I shared with you. Although it does go into academics, I don't think we would say it goes into the classroom. When we built that piece of it this last year, we used really a lot of open source best practices. But a lot of those were really more focused on academic adoption, professional development, that sort of thing. So I'd say that, that's where there's a bit of a line. So it really isn't appropriate for the entire school district, like down to the classroom teacher. I think that requires and we do talk about this, like Digital Promise has got some good resources for that type of thing. We don't want to step too far out of, the definition of what we do as CoSN, and we don't do a lot of like pedagogy oriented things, in other words. So I think you're spot on, Sheila, with that determination. We're looking for the leadership input, really, is what I would say. So you might have a classroom teacher who is an academic leader, maybe a future administrator in that regard. That person's input would be important to represent the teachers. But we want to make sure that we're not playing this off as something that is very classroom focused, because it's focused on supporting the classroom environment, not pedagogy. All right, I think we're at time, aren't we? Thank you everyone for being here today. Obviously, really great, robust discussion, and we thank you for taking your time and being the last 20 people on board today.
Feel free
Thank
to
you.
me if you have any questions that you think I can help answer.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.